Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. You know we love to bring you fascinating material, and today is no exception because we are diving into Invincible Thinking by Ryuho Okawa. Now, this is especially cool because this is based on material that you, our listeners, shared with us, and this book is now available in Hindi.
That's right.
So I'm really excited to unpack this and to see what we can glean from this book.
Yeah.
I mean, really, our mission today is to sort of extract the most potent principles, the most valuable insights from invincible thinking that can really help us as we move forward in our lives, to kind of fortify our understanding and to cultivate a truly resilient perspective.
It sounds great. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Right, great. Invincible Thinking, or Incanto, in its Hindi form, is a really interesting book. Even just looking at the preface and the introduction, you get the sense that this is something that's resonated with a lot of people. It delves into what it claims are the secrets, the real secrets to happiness and success. And it kind of hinges everything on this core idea of invincible thinking. So I'm excited to see where that takes us.
Me too. And before we dive in, I think it's helpful to give our listeners a little bit of background on this book. It's not brand new. It's actually drawn from seminars that were held for Happy Science members way back, going back to 1989.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so that's a good amount of time for these ideas to have really been honed and developed. And it's not just a local thing, it's been translated into numerous languages and has, garnered a global readership. So it's clearly resonating with people across cultures.
Absolutely. And what I think is especially compelling is that right from the get-go, the book kind of hits you with this core message. There's no such thing as defeat. It's really bold, it's powerful, and it sets the tone.
Right.
The main purpose, as it states, is to instill a deep sense of courage in its readers and to, really nurture that sense of unwavering hope, which I think, in today's world, with everything going on, it's something that many of us are really searching for.
Definitely. And for those of you listening in, our goal with this deep dive is to kind of be your shortcut to distill the essence of invincible thinking so you can quickly grasp it, and then think about how it applies to your own personal growth, the challenges you're facing, and maybe some future aspirations that you have.
Right. Makes sense.
Okay, so let's dive in.
So the book logically starts by examining, the very foundation of this invincibility. What makes someone, have this invincible way of thinking? And the first crucial element is the essential qualities of a mentor. It suggests that as human beings, we naturally look for guidance. We want someone to kind of show us the way.
That's true. We all have people we look up to, whether formally or informally. So what are the hallmarks, then, of a mentor who can truly help us cultivate this kind of thinking?
Okay, so the book lays out several key attributes that make a mentor truly exceptional in their ability to guide us toward invincibility. First off, it says that a great mentor can see, one or two steps ahead.
Okay.
Almost like they have this foresight into future possibilities. They also embody strong character, certain spiritual qualities that just naturally draw people to them.
So it's more than just knowledge, right? It's about inner strength, about a certain vision that can instill confidence in the people they guide.
Right. And it's not just about having that foresight, seeing what's coming, but also about being able to inspire hope. The book really highlights the importance of having a bright vision of the future and a mentor who can show you how to get there, how to open those doors and make that future a reality.
That makes sense.
It's also interesting, the book mentions how even those great leaders, even the most remarkable people, often face tremendous hardships in their own lives.
Oh.
It's kind of a reminder that we're all human and that even those we admire have their own struggles to overcome.
So finding those external guides is crucial. But the book also talks about this idea of gurus emerging from self-reflection. So how do those two concepts connect?
It's a fascinating perspective. While external mentorship can be incredibly valuable, the book stresses that genuine progress and insight also come from looking inward, from honestly examining ourselves.
Right.
It points out that a lot of times we only really become aware of problems when they've already gotten pretty bad, whether it's a health issue, a relationship problem, a financial crisis.
Oh, I can relate to that. It's like ignoring that little warning light in your car until something major goes wrong.
Exactly. Like that salesperson who's so focused on making those sales, hitting those targets, that they completely neglect their own well-being.
Right.
They might be outwardly successful, but inside they're burning out. The point is, consistent self-reflection gives us a chance to catch these things early, to recognize those warning signs and address them before they become major issues.
So it's about being proactive with our inner lives just as much as we are with our outer endeavors.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, the outline mentions the necessity of tests for spiritual growth. That sounds pretty intense.
It is, doesn't it?
How does the book present that?
Well, the book kind of flips the script on how we typically view challenges and difficulties. It presents them not just as obstacles, but as essential for our spiritual growth. It's through these tests that we really develop our inner strength and resilience. It uses the example of a top salesperson who's hitting all their targets, doing great individually, but they've stopped growing because they haven't invested in their team's development.
Right, they're not seeing the bigger picture.
Exactly. And so they hit a plateau. But the book argues that it's by navigating these difficulties, even the ones that feel like setbacks, that we ultimately achieve more and become more capable.
It's like that saying, pressure can either break you or make you a diamond.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, and so the book also dives into learning from adversity. How does that build on that notion of test being necessary?
This section is really interesting. It observes that we often admire those people who just seem to breeze through life, achieving success effortlessly. They have those natural talents, and everything comes easily to them.
Yeah.
But the book cautions that those who only seek praise and avoid situations where they might fail, they might be missing out on something crucial.
They might develop certain skills, but they're not really building that resilience that comes from overcoming challenges.
Exactly. The idea here is that facing difficulties head-on and overcoming them builds a deeper, more enduring kind of strength.
You're not just tested, you're forged.
Exactly. And it's through those experiences that we gain a true understanding of the world and ourselves, often in ways that we wouldn't if everything was always easy.
It reminds me of that quote, "Smooth seas don't make skillful sailors."
That's a good one.
Okay, let's move on to a concept I think many people will find relatable: not living a life of excuses.
This is a powerful section. It really stresses the importance of taking responsibility for our lives and our choices.
Yeah.
And it encourages us to resist the temptation to make excuses when things get tough. And to really drive this point home, the book gives some pretty amazing examples.
Okay, give us an example.
Well, it highlights the incredible story of Franklin D. Roosevelt, who faced immense physical challenges, but went on to lead his nation through some of its most difficult times. It also shares the inspiring account of a woman who overcame both poverty and severe illness to achieve remarkable success.
Those are some powerful stories.
Yeah.
So what are the key lessons that the book draws from these examples?
The lessons are quite clear. The first is to accept our current situation as our starting point. No matter how difficult it might seem, we have to acknowledge where we are before we can move forward.
Okay.
The second is to learn from our adversity. Don't just endure it, but really extract those valuable lessons that it holds. The third is to avoid becoming overly reliant on others to solve our problems. It's about cultivating self-reliance.
Right.
And finally, it's crucial to avoid complaining, to resist that urge to dwell in negativity. It's about focusing on solutions rather than dwelling on problems.
It sounds like it's all about taking ownership of our journey, not just being a passenger.
You got it.
Okay, so the book then transitions to talking about paving the way with strong resolve and willpower. How does that connect to overcoming difficulties and avoiding excuses?
This part of the book really dives into the importance of determination. It's about having that unwavering resolve to overcome what might seem like our limitations or even fate itself. It encourages us to identify our inherent abilities, those inner strengths that we all possess, and not be limited by our current circumstances. No matter how challenging things might seem right now.
It's about seeing beyond our present reality, having a vision for something greater.
Precisely. And to illustrate this point, it shares this incredibly inspiring story about a person who, despite facing severe physical limitations, learned to paint with both their mouth and their feet.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's a powerful example of what can be accomplished with sheer willpower and perseverance, even in the face of what might seem like insurmountable obstacles.
That's so inspiring. The book also explores this idea of finding ways to become invincible. That sounds like an ongoing journey, not a destination.
It definitely is. The book delves into this concept of constantly seeking ways to improve ourselves, to evolve and grow. But it also talks about actively looking for ways to help others, to contribute to their well-being, even when we ourselves are facing limitations. And, it gives a great example with Kanoshi Matsushita.
Oh, the founder of Panasonic.
Yeah. Exactly. So due to his own persistent health issues, Matsushita actually developed a unique management philosophy.
Okay.
He focused on really nurturing the talents and abilities of his employees, empowering them to step up and lead.
So his personal limitation actually led to this kind of innovation in leadership and the empowerment of others. That's really interesting.
It is. It's about turning a perceived weakness into a strength. And the book connects this to the broader principle of expanding our capabilities, not just through individual effort, but through delegation, through seeking support, and through empowering those around us. It's a different kind of invincibility, one that is built on collaboration.
That's a really cool perspective.
Yeah.
Now let's talk a little more about overcoming personal limitations. What did the book say about that?
So the book uses this relatable analogy of a fish seller to illustrate this idea. Initially they might be focused on just selling fish in one specific location at a very specific time.
Keeping it small and manageable.
Right. But over time, they start to see those unmet needs of their customers. Maybe people want to buy fish at different times of day in different neighborhoods. And by constantly identifying and addressing those needs, they gradually expand their operation, overcoming their initial limitations.
So it's about being observant and responsive to the needs around us, seeing those opportunities for growth.
Exactly. And this actually leads us to what the book identifies as the two key principles for achieving success, which are really tied to understanding and meeting those needs.
Okay, let's hear them. What are those two keys?
The first key is to find the need. It emphasizes being constantly aware of what people truly need and then responding to those needs effectively and with sensitivity.
It's not just about identifying the need, but about addressing it in a way that truly resonates.
Right. And the book uses the example of a cake shop. They might start off with a limited selection of cakes, but by really listening to their customers, observing what's popular, they can expand their offerings, maybe add new flavors, different sizes, even complementary items like coffee.
Right. It's about being adaptable and responsive to what your customers want.
Exactly. The point is to always be looking for what's needed, whether it's by yourself, your company, or even the world at large.
That's a great point. What's the second key?
The second key is to think about future development. Once you've identified a need and achieved some initial success in meeting it, the key is to then think about how to further develop and leverage that understanding for even greater growth and impact.
So going back to the cake shop example, it's not just about offering those new flavors, but maybe thinking about catering, opening new locations, really expanding on that initial success.
Exactly. It's about having a forward-thinking mindset and constantly looking beyond the present moment.
So that concludes the first part of the book, which really lays the groundwork for this idea of invincibility. Now, the second part takes a fascinating turn, diving into this idea of bringing about revolutionary change in our thinking.
Yes, this is where it gets really interesting. The book starts by highlighting the importance of giving birth to new ideas. And it examines this human tendency to get stuck in binary thinking, seeing things as either good or bad, right or wrong.
Like we create these boxes in our minds and limit ourselves to those options.
Exactly. And the book argues that clinging to those old negative thought patterns, that binary way of seeing the world, really hinders our ability to see new possibilities. It even uses this vivid analogy of someone trapped in a leaky boat.
Okay.
They're so fixated on complaining about the rain pouring in that they don't even try to find a way to plug the leak or find a better boat.
Right. They're so focused on the problem that they miss the potential solutions.
Exactly. And it applies this to our relationships too. If we're constantly dwelling on the negative aspects of a relationship, we might miss those opportunities for growth and reconciliation. The point is to shift our perspective and look for those new, constructive ways to approach our situations.
It's about moving beyond just identifying problems and actively seeking those solutions.
Yes.
The book then talks about the search for a third option. How does that address this binary thinking?
This builds on the previous point. It encourages us to break free from that be-there mindset and look for a third, more creative and effective solution to our problems. It's not always about choosing between two opposing options. There might be a completely different path that we haven't even considered.
It's about thinking outside the box, literally.
Exactly. And the book even uses the author's own experience as an example. He was facing a situation where he felt he had to choose between writing books and giving lectures. He saw them as mutually exclusive.
Right.
But by searching for that third option, he figured out how to integrate both. He started using the content from his lectures as the basis for his books.
So he turned a perceived limitation into an opportunity. That's really clever.
Yeah, and it highlights how important it is to consider a wider range of possibilities when we face these dilemmas.
Absolutely. The next concept is thinking in reverse for positive thinking. That sounds like a mental trick.
It is, in a way. It involves intentionally challenging our habitual, often negative thought patterns to achieve more positive outcomes. The book uses this simple example of taking a vacation. The typical negative thought process might involve feeling guilty about leaving work behind, worrying about things going wrong while you're gone.
Oh, the classic vacation guilt. I've definitely been there.
We all have. But the book suggests a reverse approach. Instead of dwelling on the negative, focus on creating positive anticipation. Make sure all your work is properly delegated or documented before you leave.
So by addressing those potential problems beforehand, you can actually enjoy your vacation without stress and guilt.
Exactly. It's about taking responsibility and being proactive, which ultimately leads to a more positive experience.
That's a great tip. The final point in this section is using failure as a stepping stone. This is a theme we hear a lot, but it's always good to be reminded.
Absolutely. The book really emphasizes the importance of seeing failure not as a defeat, but as a learning opportunity, a chance to grow. It even uses this analogy of batting averages, saying that the more we try, even if we fail sometimes, the more likely we are to eventually succeed.
It's about embracing persistence and seeing those setbacks as temporary detours, not dead ends.
Right. And the key to this revolutionary thinking is to develop a mindset that sees mistakes as valuable feedback that helps us learn and improve.
It's all about continuous improvement.
Exactly.
So that wraps up the second part of the book, which focuses on transforming our thinking. Now we move into part 3, life and victory. This sounds like it's about putting these principles into practice in different areas of our lives.
Yes, this section is all about applying invincible thinking to overcome obstacles and achieve success and fulfillment in various aspects of life. It covers how to live a healthy life, the creation of wealth, marriage and home, and chance encounters change your destiny.
Okay, so it's a holistic approach to living a truly fulfilling life. Let's start with how to live a healthy life.
The first point the book makes here is really important. Physical conditions block the mind. It stresses that we can't neglect our physical health if we want to achieve victory in any area of life.
Right, our physical well-being directly impacts our mental and emotional state.
Exactly. And it uses this analogy of riding a bicycle to explain the next point. Learn to control your physical body. Just like you have to learn to steer and balance a bicycle, you need to learn to control and care for your body.
Our body is our vehicle, and it needs regular maintenance to run smoothly.
Exactly. Which leads to the next point. Take care of your body yourself. This is about taking personal responsibility for our health and well-being.
Right, we can't always rely on others to do it for us.
And it uses this vivid example of a paratrooper. They have to make sure their own parachute is working properly. No one else can do it for them.
It's a life or death situation.
Exactly. And in a way, our health is too. And lastly, the book talks about the relationship between body and mind. It emphasizes how interconnected they are. Caring for our physical needs through things like rest, nutrition, and exercise actually has a positive impact on our mental clarity, emotional stability, and overall well-being.
It's a two-way street. When one thrives, the other benefits.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on to a topic that often carries a lot of baggage, the creation of wealth.
Yeah, this can be a sensitive topic, so the book addresses it very carefully. It starts by discussing the potential problems that can arise from a religious mentality when it comes to wealth.
Okay.
Sometimes there can be this misconception that poverty is somehow more virtuous or that wealth is inherently bad. And it argues that holding on to poverty fueled by envy or misunderstanding about the true purpose of wealth actually hinders our growth.
So it's not about condemning wealth itself, but about understanding its potential.
Exactly. And the book then goes on to present money as a means to happiness. It sees it as a tool that can be used to create happiness and well-being, both for ourselves and for others.
It's about how we use it, not just how much we have.
Right. And it reinforces this by discussing the falsehood of poverty caused by envy. It emphasizes that envying the wealth of others is counterproductive and doesn't actually help us improve our own situation.
It just breeds negativity and resentment.
Exactly. And so after addressing these potential misconceptions, it then lays out 3 basic principles for wealth creation.
Okay, what are those?
The first is a classic: spend less than you earn and save. It's a fundamental principle of financial stability, and it provides the foundation for future growth. The second is to diligently use the money you have. This means making wise investments, avoiding waste, being responsible with your resources.
Right, making your money work for you.
Exactly. And the third principle is to attract money through positive thinking and effort. It gives the example of starting a business, but really it's about being proactive and pursuing opportunities with confidence and determination.
So it's a combination of practicality and mindset.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to the next section. Husband and home. What insights does Invincible Thinking offer on this important aspect of life?
The book emphasizes the importance of starting with a clear vision. It encourages us to define what our ideal marriage and home life look like before we even start actively seeking it.
Having that clear picture in mind can help us make choices that are aligned with our goals.
Exactly. It's like having a destination in mind before you start a journey. The book then poses this really interesting question. Do you have deep knowledge about your ideal life partner?
Oh, that's a good one.
It acknowledges those common factors people consider, like physical attraction, personality, and intelligence, but it really pushes us to go deeper.
To look for those deeper levels of compatibility, shared values, and mutual understanding.
Precisely. It's not just about finding someone who checks all the boxes on paper, but someone who we truly connect with on a deeper level. And this leads to the next point. Strive for an ideal match. The book emphasizes that finding a truly compatible partner often takes effort, self-reflection, and personal growth.
It's not just about finding the right person, but about being the right person.
Exactly. It's about working on ourselves so that we can attract and build a healthy, fulfilling relationship.
That makes a lot of sense. The final subsection in this part is chance encounters change your destiny. That sounds both exciting and unpredictable.
It is. The book talks about this hope of meeting a great person who could enter our lives seemingly by chance and have a profoundly positive impact on our future.
Okay.
But it also emphasizes the importance of being prepared for such encounters, both internally and externally. It's about being open to new possibilities, to meeting people who might challenge our perspectives and help us grow.
It's about being ready for those unexpected opportunities.
Right. And once we have those encounters, the book stresses the importance of listening carefully and humbly to what we hear.
Being open to their wisdom and guidance.
Exactly. And finally, it encourages us to become a person of great heart. This is about cultivating those inner qualities that allow us to attract and benefit from those chance encounters. Things like compassion, gratitude, and generosity of spirit.
So it's about being ready to receive those gifts when they come our way.
Yes.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of part 3, and we're now entering the final and perhaps most central part of the book. Part 4, the power of invincible thinking.
Yes, this is where it all comes together. The book starts by outlining the principle of connecting self-reflection and progress.
Okay.
It explains that the essence of invincible thinking is about linking that deep self-awareness we gain through reflection with a positive, forward-looking mindset that's focused on growth and improvement.
So it's not just about looking inward or just being optimistic, it's about connecting those two.
Exactly. It's about using self-reflection to inform our actions and guide us towards our goals.
Right, it's about having a clear vision of where we want to go and then using our understanding of ourselves to get there.
Precisely. The book then goes on to discuss the power of invincible thinking in the real world.
Okay.
It presents this mindset not as some abstract philosophy, but as a practical guide to navigating life's challenges and creating a better future.
It's about having that inner strength and resilience that helps us overcome obstacles and achieve our goals.
Exactly. And then it delves into this really powerful concept. Turn difficulties into your strength for the development of your soul.
Okay.
It emphasizes that those hardships we face aren't just bad luck, they're actually crucial opportunities for spiritual growth and development. It's through those challenges that we really build our character and resilience.
It's about seeing those difficulties as stepping stones, not stumbling blocks.
Exactly. The book then shifts its focus to time management, advising us to become the master of your own time. It stresses the importance of being intentional with how we spend our time, setting priorities, and avoiding distractions.
It's about taking control of our schedules instead of letting them control us.
Exactly. And it uses this really beautiful analogy of bamboo.
Okay, I love a good analogy.
This one is great. It compares our personal growth to the growth of a bamboo stalk. You know how bamboo gets stronger at its nodes, those joints that form during periods of adverse weather?
Yeah.
Well, the book says that our challenges are like those adverse weather conditions. They might be tough at the time, but they make us stronger and more resilient in the long run.
It's like those challenges create these annual rings of strength within us.
Exactly. It's like each difficulty leaves us a little wiser and more capable than we were before.
I love that.
And the next piece of advice builds on this. It encourages us to think like a long-distance runner. This is about pacing ourselves, maintaining a long-term perspective, and avoiding burnout when pursuing our goals.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. And this leads to the concept of accumulated effect.
Okay.
It explains that even small, consistent efforts, when applied over time, can lead to significant results. It compares this to aged wine or pickled vegetables, which improve and mature over time.
It's about the power of consistency and patience.
Exactly. And the book then gives us this call to action. Instead of waiting for opportunity, take the next step. It's about being proactive, taking initiative, and creating our own momentum rather than waiting for the perfect moment.
It's about being the driver, not the passenger.
Yes. And then it offers this beautiful piece of advice: sow the seeds of love when conditions are favorable.
Okay.
This is about being kind and generous, especially when things are going well for us.
It's about sharing our good fortune with others and building those positive connections.
Exactly. And it creates a ripple effect, spreading positivity and goodwill.
It's about paying it forward.
Yes. And then, to keep us striving for more, the book advises us to set a goal one step higher.
Don't get complacent. Always reach for more.
Exactly. It's about continuous improvement, always pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zones.
Right.
And then it reminds us to think flexibly and turn hardship into profit.
That sounds familiar.
It's like Konosuke Matsushita's story. It's about being adaptable, resourceful, and seeing those hidden opportunities even in difficult situations. And finally, the book ends with this empowering idea of moving toward daily success.
Okay.
It emphasizes the snowball effect that comes from consistent positive thinking and action.
Those small wins add up over time.
Exactly. And they create a more positive outlook on life and a self-reinforcing cycle of success.
So it's about building that momentum through consistent action and a positive mindset.
Yes.
That brings us to the end of part 4 and to the end of our deep dive into Invincible Thinking.
Wow, that was a journey.
It was, wasn't it?
So many great takeaways.
So to kind of summarize, the core message here is about cultivating that positive, forward-looking mindset, embracing self-reflection, learning from every experience, especially those challenges, and taking proactive steps toward our goals while supporting and uplifting those around us.
That's a great summation. It's really about recognizing our own inner strength and using it to create a better future for ourselves and for the world.
Absolutely. And for you, our listener, I want you to consider this. Think about one specific area in your life right now where you can apply these principles. Maybe you're facing a challenge, maybe you're chasing a dream. Whatever it is, I want you to see those obstacles as opportunities for growth, to embrace those challenges as stepping stones on your path to becoming truly invincible.
I love that. What a powerful message. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.
Yeah.
And until next time, keep diving deep.